Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner, executive producer and host of the Break It Down Show. This is a long one. This episode is Scott and I recapping our epic cross-country trip. 9 states, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. We rode out there because Scott needed to go bury his friend David White. And when Scott was trying to decide what to do with this funeral that he had to speak and give the eulogy at, he decided to ride his motorcycle. So I said, hey, that's a long ride on a motorcycle. You're going to need help. Let me back you up and I'll drive my truck. So Scott got on his Harley, the Road King, and I got into the Ram and we ventured out. Before that even happened, though, Nick Velez, president of Save the Brave, said, hey, this is going to be bigger than you think. Let's work on this and turn this into an opportunity to continue to raise awareness for veteran suicide, to raise money to help the charity, and also just because of COVID, because of political struggles and racial struggles and all the things going on, let's go experience, let's get out of the house and experience people throughout this great nation and drive right across it, there and back, and just see what happens. See if we can build something bigger. And we did. And this episode is the story of that journey. And I know you're going to love it. Again, it's long. And we drop a lot of names because there were so many people to thank. And if we missed your name, definitely know that it wasn't by design. We were trying to get as many people in there as we could. The show is almost 2 hours long. But we appreciate everybody. Definitely put your names and comments in there because we know we didn't get to everybody. But the whole show was done through a point of view of love, respect, and care. We were overwhelmed by the reception of everybody that we got. I mean, every single state really turned out and had a lot to support us. Okay, so there's that. And I say, hey, go to Save the Brave, savethebrave.org to help us raise money for the charity. But this is obviously just a whole episode talking about that. If you're interested in supporting Save the Brave, and we will be doing another Ride for the Brave next year. If you're interested in that, simply go to Save the Brave, savethebrave.org, click on the donate tab, and just go to the monthly one and drop some money in there. Again, $5-10. I see it. It's happening. There's more people all the time adding to that pile of money, and it's an enormous benefit. But there's other things you can do. You can help with errands, social media. You can always share this episode. Sharing this episode is a form of charity. So definitely don't be afraid to do that. All right, I'm going to shut up and let you guys get into it because this is a long one. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, all of you, for your support. It's been wonderful getting to know everybody on the route. And if you already know us, thank you all for your continued support. Here comes Scott Huesing.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Morata.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Scott Huesing, the Executive Director of Save the Brave, and you are listening to the Break It Down Show.
Your dumbass drove your motorcycle across this nation, coast to coast to coast, SoCal to South Carolina to SoCal. We just got back yesterday. Just been about 24 hours.
You say your dumbass. That includes you following me because when I told you I was going to ride across the country to honor my buddy Dave White, who committed suicide last month, you unhesitatingly said, I want to go.
Yeah. It's not a revelation that I do dumb shit. So
it's not dumb,
yes.
man. It was love. I mean,
well, it is love.
Let's be honest. I mean, there's not a lot of people in anyone's lives that will drop everything, leave their girlfriend and kids and everything, and just, God, you were like FBCB2, Blue Force Tracker, trying to drop pods, the Prison Chronicles on the 15th, and I mean, that's a sacrifice, and, you know, we talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
Mostly hyperbole, but, and kind of, I don't know, man, but, you know, just to do that is, I don't think a lot of people understand that is really something to recognize because I mean, you know, I recognize it.
Yeah, of course.
But to everyone listening, you know, although Pete was not roughing it as he's got snacks and a cooler sitting right next to him and he's in the air conditioning and a cell phone to keep him company. I'm blasting away through 100 degree heat plus. I think it got 118 at one point.
Scott, I'm getting low in bubbly water. We're going to have to stop.
The best is like at the end of the trip. We'll get to that point, but you have to describe your injury at the end of the trip, which I gave you plenty of shit for. But rode the bike across the country, and that's what we're going to talk about on this show is Ride for the Brave, because this trip was born out of tragedy, but turned into something really remarkable that we've talked about during countless interviews, none of which happened in California.
Yeah.
From media outlets across the country, radio stations, podcasts, and just a ton of support from great Americans along the Southern Beltway through Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina, and Georgia. I mean, in Alabama.
Yeah. So, yep. So that's a long ride, but let's go back and start with David and who David was for you in your life. I mean, because when you get the call and you're inspired to drive your motorcycle across the nation, that comes from somewhere. Where is that place?
So I get a phone call or a text message from another close high school friend, and it's cryptic, like most are when you know someone's died. Hey, did you hear about Dave? And you think the worst, obviously.
Right.
And sure enough, I called his mom and dad, and they confirmed it, and they gave me the details. Dave White was my high school friend. I was actually friends with his brother, Andy, before Dave. Andy was a year ahead of me. Dave was a year after me. But we all hung out. They had a house on the same block adjacent to Waukegan West High School. Their mom probably fed me more meals than my own family. That's how close we were. And eventually Dave joined the Navy. Wasn't a combat vet, not that that matters. He was actually a chef for the admiral's staff on the USS Constellation. So, we called him a spoon because he was a cook in the Navy. And shortly into his Navy career, he tried out for the all-Navy wrestling team because Dave was a phenomenal wrestler. And he wrestled all-Navy, I think, pretty much until he got out of the Navy. And then really just struggled, I think, through life, trying to find his place, trying to find out what he wanted to do. And Dave had his own problems and trauma. His dad was a Waukegan cop and was shot when Dave was really young. So he had that, milling around in the closet. And I think just going through life and trying to figure out what his place was, he struggled with depression and he drank way too much. And every bad thing that's happened to anyone we've known in life, myself included, alcohol has been involved.
Sure.
When you abuse it to that degree. And so Dave died last month in Butte, Montana, alone. The house he was staying in was just a single room. He didn't have any furniture, no personal effects. And the lady that owned the house came home early on that weekend and found Dave, and he was dead. He drank himself to death, literally. And he had, I don't know if anyone's seen Leaving Las Vegas with Nick Cage, but it takes a lot to drink yourself to death.
Yeah.
So, but Dave, to me, I could tell countless stories, and it was tough giving the eulogy when I got to South Carolina because I tried not to write something or speak about all the happy moments because they all involved alcohol. It was like, Dave came to my house one time, Pete, in Illinois when I was going to Illinois State, and he shows up, just rolls in hot on, I think it was like a Thursday, and he goes, "We're going to drink a beer every hour on the hour for 72 hours. I was like, yeah, I got that. We could do that. And it was Ice House. So, but that was Dave. And if anyone listening to this show, which is a special show because we're going to thank a lot of people in the show and talk about Dave a little bit. If you love Chris Farley or Tommy Boy, Dave was absolutely our Chris Farley. I mean, the guy would unabashedly take any dare you threw his way. He had no shame and you couldn't embarrass the guy if you pulled his pants down to Madison Square Garden and he had a 2-inch dick. Like, just, he'd be like, yeah, like, look at that. I mean, he was just, he had a great big personality, but he also had a great big heart, and he loved people. And I think when you're like that, and you give so much of yourself, you give a lot of your heart away, and people don't return that to refill the tank. I think that hurts.
Yeah,
and I think people struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard. And a lot of times when alcohol comes and gets you right around 50-ish years old, that's when your body's like, done.
Yeah, Dave was 48.
Yeah.
And but still way too young, But again, I don't want the listeners to be like, God, this is a depressing podcast, because it's not. Here's the thing with Dave, and anyone that's had anyone in their life that drinks too much or uses drugs or substances, like, you try and help people. And my whole life, and all of our friends from high school that stayed close, and there's only 3 or 4 of us. Mm-hmm. Most joined the Marines or the Navy, have all thrown Dave a rope and tried to pull him onto the ship. I've even jumped off the ship into the water and tried to swim that guy to safety. But there's just some people, man, they want to drown, and you can't save them. I mean, that's just a fact. And working with SaveTheBrave.org, our nonprofit that helps raise awareness for veteran suicide and post-traumatic stress, we realize that is we try and do as much as we can for as many as we can, but we're also realists in the fact that you can't help them all, man. You just can't. I mean, that's a fact.
I also like to think that in general, you don't have to be a veteran to commit suicide, No. And again, like as guys like us hit our 50s, it's getting worse. In general, in society, we have this thing, Gen X, that we're killing ourselves. And so you don't have to wait until the person gets to the end of their rope. Reach out all the time. Be part of people's lives that you care about, because ultimately, that's all you really can do. You can't save someone, but you can be involved in their life. And if it's a phone call or a text or whatever.
I've shared this with you, but I don't think we've talked about it on the show. And I've admittedly say it may seem kind of shallow or superficial, but when I'm traveling a lot, I go to the airport and I go through my cell phone and I type up a text. I say, hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Just want to touch base and see how things are going. I'm doing some traveling, and I'd love to catch up. And I copy and paste it, and I go through A, B, C, all people I haven't talked to.
Yeah.
And maybe by boarding call or United Club says, hey, your flight's boarding, I get to F.
Yeah.
And then when I get off the plane at my destination, maybe a third have texted me back saying, oh, man, I'm so glad you reached out. And I don't say that because, like, oh, I want to feel good because I'm a communicator. It's you have to make a fucking conscious effort to do it.
Yeah.
And then maybe on the way back, I go, G through Z. I don't know. But, it's the old adage, you have to send mail to get mail. It's no different with all the tools we have available with text and DM.
Yeah. And I would also say that someone who's struggling, who's getting to the end of their rope, they need both hands. They can't reach out. They're not going to reach out. Yeah. And they really, as someone that gets in that spot a lot, you think, what's the point in reaching out? There's no future. No one cares. And it's all wrong.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter in that room, And so by reaching out, you create the opportunity for that person to go, okay, yeah. And then, and you try.
Let's. I think we should take listeners through the ride, how it started, and then go to west to east and then east to west, because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah,
16 days on the road.
16 days. We started on the 13th, and we left from Temecula.
Yep.
Do we? Yeah, and we invited San Diego Channel 5. Is that right?
NBC 7.
NBC 7.
And
failure.
In their defense, that day, the Bonham Richard did burn to the keel.
Yeah.
So, I get it. But no other local news coverage in California.
Yeah.
We contacted the mayor's office in Temecula. They were very, very interested in why we were gathering outside of City Hall. Yet, no city officials showed up, but all of our friends, family, and veteran supporters like Tom Tackett, Patriotic Service Dog Foundation showed up. Matt Pogue, San Diego Police Department drove up. He and I served together. Nick Velez, the whole Save the Brave crew showed up, and a handful of others, and they rode me out of town on the 13th.
The reason why we bring that up about the news not finding it newsworthy enough to send someone, because they've got someone. Let's be honest, they have someone. Someone there is trying to make their bones, and they're like desperate for the story. You guys are all doing the burning ship. I'm going to go get this veteran.
Yeah, send the intern. Hey, here's your chance. Don't fuck this up.
Don't fuck you. We shouldn't do this, right? Yeah. But they didn't, and the mayor's office failed. And there's a reason why we bring that up, because that was the last time for a long time that really anybody failed to show support.
Well, what's galling and equally disappointing is this is what I probably call my hometown. And, when they take you for granted and they don't show up, you can't help but be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
Thinking, what? When I travel across the nation, people fly me to destinations sometimes and to hear what we're doing for veterans, and then your own town is just like meh. We'll get to it.
So we get to Tucson and it's different.
Yeah. First we blaze out, we roll through Yuma. It's 116 degrees. We get an invite from American Legion Post 19. Woody's there.
Yeah. We
roll into the post dripping wet. I'm guzzling water. Pete's dabbing his brow gently from the walk.
It's hot out there. I had to turn the AC down. Yeah.
Pete's got a sweater vest on. I'm wearing full leathers, jacket and leather chaps, fight the elements off, and a full face helmet. But they show up and anything it can do. And Woody says, "Hey, on the way back, come here. There's going to be a media blitz." And this is sure enough, he delivered. But we'll talk about that. And then they send us off through Yuma. We get to Tucson, and our brand new friend, hadn't met her yet, Lizette Ekman from the American Legion Riders, had set up a huge welcome at the American Legion post, and we had media in the parking lot.
Right. Local Tucson media was there. You do a spot with them. Lizette basically says, "Hey, you need to have more shirts." We left, and you do your best to be prepared, but we left. We grabbed the box of shirts, smalls and mediums is what we had available. But still, though, we were able to, give out some of our swag, and people were glad to give us money. They filled the can, and
they did. I mean, we raised several $100 there, and that was ABC Channel 9,
right?
That showed up and did a good piece in the parking lot, and then we had a bunch of veterans from every branch of service were there. Your friend
Dan White
showed up.
And his wife showed up.
Not to be confused with Dave White, but Dan White and his wife showed up. He's a big fan.
Yeah.
Gave me a big bear hug, and then wrapped up, and we didn't have lodging in Tucson, but we had another Echo Company 2-4 Marine who had served in the same battalion as me, named Brian Lloyd. And Brian and I had never met. And the interesting part of this story is our connection in Dallas that hosts us on the way back. Try and keep up. This is crazy. Sends him his signed copy of my book and says, "You need to know about this Echo and Ramadi." He goes, "What are you talking about? I am Echo and Ramadi." But he was there in 2004.
Right.
I was there in 2006. Nonetheless, we're magnificent bastards. He invites us into his home. His wife cooks carne asada and a full spread. We stay in their palatial ensuite at Brian's house and have a few drinks and then rack out. But right there was kind of our entrance into the Southern hospitality, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how much. I don't know if Tucson is actually further south.
We can't go through all the details.
No, we can't.
But because it's going to get crazy and long. But it is fun to point out. I just want to clarify your thing. So TK sends Brian your book and says Echo and Ramadi, and that's why Brian's like, "No, I'm Echo and Ramadi." So Brian reads it and opens his home to us because of that. So that's your guys' connection. And then we get there and find out that there are more connections.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's hilarious. So I realized that Brian knows my buddy Joel, my buddy Matt. I know Joel through Matt. Matt and I worked together in Iraq. And I'm like, "Wait a second, do you know Joel McCullough?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then he talked about Joel, and I'm like, then you must know Matt Menard. He's like, yeah, Matt Menard punching a Rocky Shake in the face, or a Rocky cop in the face because of, some kind of a Rocky fuckery and everything. And so, yeah, those guys are going to be on the show in a week or two.
Yeah, because Brian was an intel guy, right? Special operations, and man, it's so crazy, such a small world.
Yeah. So. Two parts of the puzzle
and there's more to come on this connection with Brian, and when we wrap this up on the way back. But that's an important detail,
right?
You got to tell the listeners. So stay tuned to this show.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
It is really, really important with everything we're talking about with Save the Brave and Ride for the Brave and raising and maintaining awareness for veteran suicide.
Now, we're about to go to Pecos. And you're riding in your bike, and your bike is not really a long-term, like you're not riding on a Goldwing. You're riding
it's a touring class.
It's a touring class bike, but it's not set up for touring.
No, it's set for being badass.
Right. You look like Terminator as opposed, like in Terminator 2, as opposed to, like sitting back with your...
Yeah, there's no fairing on it. There's no big windscreen.
There's people have windscreens for their feet.
I know.
We saw those too. Granted, they're in Arizona where it's like driving into a convection oven, but yeah, you didn't have all those things. How were you holding up physically during all that stuff?
The ride itself was really physical. The elements, the crosswind, the wind shear from the 18-wheelers, the heat was rough. But again, I would have had to make more stops and probably wouldn't have stayed on the timeline I had set for myself had you not been behind me.
Yeah.
IGY6. Did you get the patch on your dash?
I saw that. That made me laugh. Yeah.
So, just to have like a handy, cool water and hydrate and just push but the physicality of it all. I mean, I think I probably lost maybe 10, 12 pounds on the ride, just sweating it out.
And just the physical, like the water weight for sure, but also your body is constantly firing, holding the bike, staying on the bike, all the things you have to do. And also we're stopping as often as we need to, but we have a schedule to make. And then we also have social media posts to do. And you look at the machine as a whole, because we're cranking out pictures and videos and sending them back to Nick.
Yeah, and that
producing things.
I mean, that's important too, because this trip started off as just a mode of transportation. I said, I'm just going to ride my Harley. Fuck COVID. Like, I don't want to deal with the airlines. I needed to get out. You needed to get out.
Yeah.
And so I said, let's just do this, man.
Yeah.
And Nick Velez, who's president of Save the Brave and owner of Bastards American Canteen, who's one of my Marines, said, hey, I'm going to start jamming out flyers, and we're going to have our marketing peeps push this out, because when people find out about this, it's really going to get bigger than you think. I said, whatever you need to do, man, but I'm riding.
Yeah.
I'm riding.
Yeah.
And Pete's behind me. He can help out. And, it just became overwhelming. The support. I mean, not the work, the ride, but the support was just so great.
We ride through Tucson all the way into Texas. So we're east of El Paso.
Which is about a 540-mile ride.
Long, hot stretch.
540.
Yeah.
We averaged around 500 miles a day.
Right. And we, at this point, kind of had our road bones set up. Mm-hmm. The riding got easier from there on out until we got back to, but that's hard, right?
According to Pete.
Yeah.
He loved to mock me, though, too, because I was shifting in the saddle and, I'd go one leg up, back, and then I was crouching and bent over. But, man, when you're riding that long, I mean, I think the longest I did without a stop was 225 miles. Mm-hmm. That was the longest one, but
you only did that once or twice. Then we did a full tank.
I mean, normally it was usually 80 to 100 miles, then we'd pull over and push some water.
Yeah.
Rolled into Pecos though that night, and gave a little quick fireside chat. I was completely sweaty, threw the bandana on in front of the Pecos Police Department Chief Lisa Tarango. Said, would you please come in and talk to our staff? And there was, probably 15, 20 cops there. And, just something really cool that I was happy to offer up. And it's a town of 8,000 that's dwindling because the oil wells all dried up. And just a great West Texas town, home of the first rodeo.
Right.
And I said, this, and if anyone's wondering why I picked Pecos, Texas, is because I went on AAA Trip Planner and I said, I don't want to ride any more than 7 hours a day. So I picked these towns, and they all just happen to fall into towns where we knew people in, and then the ones we didn't, I just did a Google search and said, hey, I love first responders, I love cops, I love microbreweries, veteran-owned businesses. Like, we're going to be in your town.
Yeah.
Do you want to hang?
Yes.
So the talk went good, and then we rolled out the next morning from Pecos to Argyle, which was a big one, and Bartonville.
Yeah. Yeah, we roll into Argyle, and, well, you first got to talk about Chris and his evolution from being whatever, a Lance Corporal, whatever he was, to your radio operator and all that stuff.
So Argyle, Texas is North Dallas, in case you're wondering where it's at on the map. So it's just about 20 minutes north of Dallas, Fort Worth. And Chris Muscle was an infantryman.
Mm-hmm.
He's a rifleman, trained killer, but he was also my radio operator in Ramadi. And he's in the book, Echo in Ramadi, and he's a redhead. He got fucked with a lot because I snatched him up, and he was kind of my right-hand man that I dragged around the battlefield
Press
with me.
pause for a second. I realized we missed something I wanted to say. I want to go back to Pecos. Everywhere we went, we saw veterans who were involved in the community. We had those other guys came out that we took pictures with and everything. And this became a theme throughout the show. They're like, come look at our veteran memorial. And they pointed over at the water tower. And at that point, we're just smoked. We're like, can we do this later? Yeah. But we didn't end up going. And also, it was really hard to even get dinner in that town. So it's so small. We was like we were in an episode like of Tin Cup, the TV show. It was just 100 degrees inside the restaurant. And anyhow,
The chef was. Yeah. Where was the chef from again? Vietnam or something
Vietnam
like
yeah, for sure.
He was yelling at his kids. There was like some 13-year-old kid ringing us up, like family business in Pecos, Texas. It was greasy taco salad. Or it's like, I go, Pete, I can't eat this.
And they're like, we don't have that. We don't have that. We don't have that. We just kept going down
70% of the menu, we don't have that.
Yeah. And I'm not joking. It was 100 degrees in there. We took a great video with our favorite character, Solomon. Anyhow, so we're not forgetting these guys, but there are so many of these fantastic veterans that are like, this is what we do here. And that continued throughout. So there's all this passion for veteran awareness and causes and support for what we're doing.
Yeah, they really dug it.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
Veteran awareness and causes and support for what we're doing.
Yeah, they really dug it. So back to Argyle.
Yes.
Chris and I fought together, and he wound up becoming the youngest captain in the Argyle Fire Department. And Chris was with. I can't wait till Chris listens to this show, because he will. Because he was working with Save the Brave as an outreach coordinator, and we gave him a ton of shit. We're like, hey man, like, you got to produce, like do a chili cook-off in firefighters. It's a natural connection. And nothing really happened. But man, he knocked it
Crushed
fuck
it. Yeah.
out of the park.
Yeah.
I mean, grand slam home run. So we push into Pecos. First, we roll into American Eagle Harley Davidson. So we want to thank those guys.
Yeah.
There was a troop of, I don't know, 40 or 50 riders
At least, yeah.
And like, I get off the bike, and everyone, like, the thing too for me is, like, you roll in and you got to take the gloves off, you got to turn the helmet off, you got to take the thing, you got to do your prep, and everyone swarms your bike
a
little bit to try and get a piece of you.
Yeah, you go from ride mode to go mode. Like, now you're entertaining and and like talking and shaking hands.
Yeah, and man, it's everybody kind of wants to get a piece of you because they appreciate what you're doing, because it's representative of what they love.
Yeah,
they want to be doing what you're doing, and some people have the opportunity and luxury of doing that. I'm the only reason I do is because I'm a writer. I think, that's what I chose to do. I work from wherever I work from. But when you got a life and a wife and job and kids, like, you're strapped. You can't just take off for fucking 2 weeks, man. Like, you can't work from your truck like most people.
Right.
But we roll into American Eagle Harley, just swarmed. They line us up, and then, man, you would have thought Donald Trump rolled into town because we had not only the riders from American Eagle Harley Davidson, but the Argyle Fire Department, Argyle Police Department, Lake City's Fire Department, Denton County Sheriff. I think Argyle Police Department was there, and then Blackstone Arms, Blackstone Arms with Eric Hicks had a Humvee leading the charge. I roll in right behind the Humvee. You're in the rear. You're taking video. How is I couldn't even see what was going on.
We were a huge convoy. And then keep in mind, and maybe you didn't see this because you were at the front of it, but there were cops pre-staged at every intersection. Like, they were already there. And then we had, like road guards, cops that would race forward and back.
Yeah, that was Denton County Sheriff.
Yeah. And so they rolled all over. Like, I can't
remember who called me on the phone, and they go, "What are you doing right now?" I go, "I'm fucking running red lights, man. I got a convoy here. It's crazy." It was not, sir, we were literally running red lights.
Yeah. And this wasn't like a cross. This was half an hour of riding. Yeah, it was a long time. It was a big deal. It was exciting to see all this. Like, I'd never been in a parade
as exciting as it was for me too. Like, I was, in many towns we rode through, it was very emotional for me being at the front of that formation and looking in my rearview mirror and thinking, who am I, man? Like, what did we do to garner this type of support? Yeah. But it really reaffirmed the love that people have for veterans, the love that people have for those who are taking their own lives and want to contribute to that cause to raise awareness. Because at the end of the day, if everyone in that convoy and everyone across America back and forth didn't understand why I was doing this, they missed the mark. But I think we did a pretty good job of saying, at the end of the day, we want veterans to stop killing themselves.
Right.
Please. There are so many people that love you and are willing to support. That was the message that I really got onto in front of the cameras, in front of the crowds, in front of the gatherings. This is why I'm doing it, man. I'm just tired of getting those phone calls and those ambiguous texts with the worst news.
Yeah.
But it got better. Throughout all that, it got ramped up in Argyle. We went to Bartonville, to Marty B's place. Marty Bryan runs Marty B's place in Bartonville, Texas. It's a barbecue restaurant, bar, outdoor venue, stage.
And this thing is Texas big. It's just not like park. Like, this is a huge. It's like my buddy Mike, who met me there, Mike Van Story. Shout out to Mike. He's like, this is like a Texas stock house, and like the concept. So you have like this big, huge bar area, and then a lot of open space. Like, this place is not like, you were never going to be cramped. It was,
and we roll in there.
Yeah.
And it's, we just talked about like getting glommed onto it, the American Eagle Harley.
Yeah.
Man, I couldn't even get a glove off, and people were shaking my hand, and like, I'm trying to undress out of my leathers. And I was thinking, like, I'm going to lose something. Like, I did my shits all over my bike, and we roll in and I'm signing books as I'm walking in. And then we got this VIP event where we signed dozens of copies of books that Nick Velez and Gail Fitzpatrick donated. That was great. Chris did the short video. We did some thank yous. And then we get on stage with Marty B. Marty is up there. True patriot. Just a guy that got very little notice.
Yeah.
He opened his restaurant and everything up to us. And as an addition, gets an electric guitarist to play the national anthem like Jimi fucking Hendrix for me. And me and Chris are on stage, stand at the position of attention, and everybody is just getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
That was cool.
That crowd was so big. You parked the bike at the front of your parade. I didn't get to park for 5 more minutes. Like, you were done out of your leathers in the crowd before I could even park, because all the bikes gathered in and had to back in, and so that's how I'm trying to give the impression, like, everybody was doing something in front of me, and it all took that much time. There were that many people when we got there, and then I was like, "Oh man, he's way over there." So I'm like, "He'll be fine."
I didn't even think, because I was just kind of
you got absorbed in,
in.
But and then I'm like, "Well, I better find a place to park," And I have all of our stuff, and so I'm like, "Where can I park with all of our stuff and be safe?" And they're like, "No one's going to touch your gear. Park right here by this fence." But that's how big the crowd was, and then we had a VIP event that people paid, I don't know, $75 a head for to get in. By the way, Chad Cole came out, by the way, Marine, former guest on the Break It Down show. And he came out and was fantastic to meet him. So Chad's there. All kinds of people are there buying tickets. And you give a great talk with Chris about your guys' time. And I thought it was hilarious. Like, it was just we took your normal talk and kind of chopped it up with this, storytelling format, because we added Chris in, and that was great. People were like, "That was so good." They I don't know if you heard any feedback, but people loved it, because it was genuine. You could see the exchange between you two.
Yeah, and I remember looking at the photos and I go, "Man, look at there's like salt stains on my T-shirt. Like, I could have thrown on a different T-shirt." And Pete says to me, "Nah, that was perfect, man."
Yeah,
like,
it was.
Everyone knew you were the fucking real deal. Like, the bike wasn't in the pickup and you drove 500 miles. Like, you rode 500 miles. And then so many cool people at that event, to include Sal Gunta, his Medal of Honor recipient from Afghanistan, who was under the radar that night and wanted to just come by and connect with me, because I think we crossed paths once or twice, but, just got a good hang in. But, when you got guys like Sal, recipient of the Medal of Honor, and thanking you for what you're doing, like, even as a guy that has 24 years in the Marine Corps, like, that's an honor. And if you don't realize that, I mean, you need to look up the definition of Medal of Honor, because it's that guy is he's a real deal.
And those guys make a lot of their money by going to things like that where they are the center of attention. And so for him to take his time to go do something, because you get sick of doing that. Like, today is the anniversary of the USS Indianapolis sinking. Yeah. And so there's a guy, Harold Bray, who was on that ship, and he's from Benicia. He's told that story 10,000 times, but it's partly how he pays the bills, And so for Sal to have to go to another event, like, that says something, that he took his time to go out and support this.
There's a lot of those guys, though, they don't take a dime, and I think that speaks volumes about their character. I mean, I think people should offer them money, at least to their nonprofits they represent, or the Medal of Honor Foundation. He was just the most inconspicuous guy. But we were planning after the event too to stay at the fire station that night. Yeah. And then we wind up staying at Eric and Robin Hicks's house, who built the rifle for us, which we'll talk about a little bit.
Before we get to their house, though, I want to say a couple things. Sure. We continue to raise money, selling shirts. Sure. People came up, and we're stuffing money in the pocket, and someone cut $1,000 check, and it was nothing to get $200 bills put in my hand. Here, this is for the cause. So the outpouring is hundreds of people at this event. By the way, huge event. So like, we were all socially distanced and everything, but it was that important to them to come out and stuff money in the pockets, and we raised a lot,
like $5,000 at Marty B's place.
Right. And then Marty B was so disappointed in the outcome, he just said, "Let's do this again next year."
He invited us back next year.
And this is in a time when restaurants, the numbers are like 85% of restaurants are going to fail, and here's Marty B saying, here's your share of the gate. Come back next year. We'll do it again.
Yep. Marty, can't wait to see you next year, brother.
Yeah. So we go to the Hicks's house for post party drinks and stuff.
Yeah, after party at Hicks's house, and it's such great Americans, and Eric's not a veteran. But he's a firefighter, so he understands the tribe and risk and danger and all that. And I think he just really. He told me this in not so many words, but like, he really appreciated kind of being adopted by Save the Brave. And Robin, they're all, by the way, Robin has a brand new Road King. And so she's a rider. Eric's a rider. He rode into town with me. And then he rode me back into Dallas when he came back. But, the party was great. And the whole time Chris Muscle was, hey, you need to get some rest and this and that. And I was up till like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then we got up early, jocked up, and went to the fire station, had a firefighter's breakfast, and the chief firefighter showed up, and they introduced me to all the guys, and Amanda and the boys showed up, and Chris gave me the full tour. And let me tell you about Chris Muscle too, because people talk about veterans being heroes, and we kind of push back on that, like, yeah, we're not heroes, we just do our job. Chris Muscle's a hero, and not maybe so much what he did in the Marine Corps fighting in the worst city in Iraq or being a firefighter and saving lives. He's also a foster parent. They've fostered 14 kids in the last 3.5 years.
Crazy.
And I found that out. It just speaks to the humility of Chris Muscle and what he does. Like, he not only supports Save the Brave, but I mean, to take 14 kids into your home and, like, oh man, just blew me away.
It's neat when you hear it because he gets promoted fast, and over the course of time. It's a long time, but, he's the youngest captain and everything. But he looks up to you as a leader, part of you put bricks in his leadership warehouse, so he can go out and build something. And like the way you guys love each other from the outside, seeing that, it's just remarkable. And it speaks a lot to the guy that Q trained up to be an officer, and who you became and what you inspired. Chris gets all the credit for his hard work, but you can see your fingerprints on his success, that you provided him with something that,
that's
any young person
that's the cool
needs.
thing about leadership, I think, that we don't often talk about is it also has a payback.
Yeah.
And the payback is, I guess for me, is seeing the success, and knowing that you made an impact, and these guys are all doing well, and that's passed down, and that's the goal, I think. Of you don't put it on your daily memo like things to do today, make an impact, but when that happens and you get to see that, is, man, it's powerful. And you're right, and it takes a guy like you to remind me of that sometimes, and you've done that countless times as well. It's just it was great, man. Argyle was great, but we got a lot of trip left.
Well, I know, but we can't leave the Hicks's house yet because
we can't leave the Hicks' house
because 2 Chads met and fell in love. I don't know if you remember this, but we're all there in the backyard hanging out and drinking, and Chad Cole was talking to the other Chad, and the other Chad is like a oil field worker, and they were just talking. We were just just BSing, and we're all in the backyard because you said I'm going to ride my motorcycle across this nation, so we put 2 Chads in there, and Chad 1 says to Chad 2, "Where are you from?" And he says, basically, your hometown. That's like, I forget what town he says. We'll just say he says Temecula, and then Chad says, "Wait, I grew up in Temecula. What's your last name?" And he's like, "My last name is Smith." And I don't remember Chad's last name. And he's like, "Well, I know your dad. I worked with him for 8 years, And then all of a sudden, like, they had this stepbrothers moment. We're like, "Are we best friends?" And they became best friends, And so these magical moments happen where, Chad Cole loves Chad 1's dad. He's like, "No, I love your dad," and they instantly are part of the same tribe and never knew it.
I didn't even realize that we threaded that needle.
Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible to have that moment. That's why I wanted to, there's this, and I would call that a tertiary benefit from this whole thing. Like there's the ride and the money and the new friends, but then there's the new friends making new friends with each other. And by the way, Chad Cole lives in Waco. He's not close to Dallas. It's a haul to get from Waco to Argyle. But he did it because of that overall love, Yeah. And by the way, that's also connection to Pete Koch, because that's how I know Chad, is through Pete. And I forget how Pete knows him, but all these things, this is your thing, power of human connection, And here's people being inspired to get up and go do something through a time of COVID and say, no, this is important. And then you get all these tertiary benefits where these guys wouldn't have known that they did that, And who knows what comes from that? Even maybe nothing comes from it, but that moment was magical. We get on the road and leave Argyle the next day, I guess. Let me say the other thing too. Robin did your laundry. I
know.
She did my laundry as well. And I was folding up, and I folded up your stuff and everything else. But it's that road family love, like Willie talks about being on the road with his family and friends,
Yeah.
And to be able to, hey, your shirts are on the table, and you don't even got to spend 30 seconds folding. It was no big deal to do it, but between her and me, we all worked on the things that needed to get worked on at the same time. It was great, to be able to do that.
It was amazing, man. I mean, you find out who your true friends are. And we've known them all of 24 hours.
Right, exactly.
That's important to note.
Yeah.
So then we left Argyle, and we pushed over to Meridian, Mississippi. And when we had made some contacts there, Colleen Marion with Chunky River Harley Davidson. I just, again, blind email, cold called. I said, hey, I'm rolling through your town. And they're like, oh, yeah, great. And then, like, KRDO News Team and WTOK showed up, and Jeff Felmet showed up, and he made the connection for the brewery we were at that night.
By the way, we did news in Odessa on the way out of town.
We did do news. Sorry, Odessa. Yeah, Big 2 News in Odessa at the Chris Kahn Memorial.
Yeah.
Yeah, they picked us up.
Right.
In Odessa, Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we roll into Meridian, and everything's set up. We did we got in late, so we just crashed, and then the next morning we got up, went to the Chunky River Harley, and then one of my Marines.
But they did take us out to dinner. We had Mexican dinner in Meridian.
That's right.
Yeah, and then you tried to pay, and they're like, "Hell no!" And you looked at me, and I'm like, "No, you have to let them pay. Like they insist. You have. This is part of the deal." And we couldn't buy meals when people were like, and they wanted to take us out to breakfast, but we had to get going at some point.
Crazy, man.
But it's just nonstop support. The topic of COVID, the topic of race, the topic of cops, none of that stuff was there. It was all about this other thing,
Yeah, and oh, by the way, these aren't like a bunch of Southern local yokels. It was Mexican Americans, Black Americans,
Asian Americans, everything.
Italian American, like every demographic of American was out there supporting us that loved the cause for SaveTheBrave.org. But the highlight for me was in Meridian was Lance McElhaney came down. He was one of the guys that fought under my command in Ramadi, and he's dealing with his own physical issues now. He's got MS really bad, but he drove 2 hours and probably got there an hour ahead of time.
Right.
He's there, shows up, and things are so fast and furious.
Right.
I've got maybe 15 minutes to spend with Lance before we have to get back on the road because we're pushing to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And from Meridian at Chunky River, how many Harleys did we have to the rest to Tuscaloosa?
So many. Yeah. It's
40,
Tuscaloosa.
30, 40?
Easily. And just all wonderful people. And all like we met a retired cop who still trains cops, who's the senior veteran bike rider. And I'm like, and he was one of those and.
They picked us up in Jackson.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
they picked us up in Jackson, rode us into Meridian.
Yeah.
And then the next morning they rode us to Tuscaloosa.
And that's pretty much the length of Alabama for the most part.
Yeah, it's about 85 miles to Tuscaloosa, right on the border of Louisiana. And then dropped us off. We did photo ops out the Yin Yang, and then rode through Louisiana to Atlanta. And then
did anybody come from far away in Dallas too? Didn't someone come from up north and come down?
We had a lot of strap hangers.
Yeah, a lot of people came from all the places.
Just too many to mention, man. It'll get too confusing, I think. But in Atlanta...
Before you get to Atlanta,
there
is a funny moment that happened for us in Alabama. And again, I kind of set the stage because, we're all doing things for each other, trying to figure it out.
Alabama's on the way back.
Not this wasn't. This is, Mississippi. And so we were there, and we get gas at whatever station they recommended, the Kangaroo Flats or whatever it was. And, we had this dance, you and I, we'd fill your bike up and then give me the hose. I'd fill the truck up and all that stuff. And then someone came up and said, no, you came up to me and said, hey, do you have jumper cables in the box? We know we had those for the trip.
Yeah.
Right? And
Some teenage kid in his fancy car his dad bought for him and wants me to jump the car. He doesn't know how to. He goes, hey, do you have cables? I go, yeah. And I almost said no. Like, I got to get going, man. There's people waiting for me.
Yeah.
But the soft side of me said, I'm going to help this kid out. And I go over there and I said, all right, here you go. Pete pulls his truck up and I said, you know how to do this? He says, no. He's clueless. Not a mechanical bone in his body. I said, all right, I'm going to teach you. So I give him life lessons 101. His girlfriend's sitting in the car. I said, hey, you need to get out here because I have a daughter. I said, you need to learn. And she goes, I'm good. Like, total Gen Z response. I was like, if I was in a hurry, I would give her counseling. But I teach the kid, like, ground first, black, and then red, and then you get in the car. And so we fire him up. And
we had cross jobs. You like, help this guy out with these cables. So I put him on the garbage can and probably went to the bathroom.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, so you go over and you finish the back end of the charging job. I parked the bike and I parked the truck so you can do the jumping. I go back over to the bike to finish the fueling process, cap you up, put everything away, all ready to go, get on the road, high five. We rip off to Meridian, which is an hour down the road.
It's an hour.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
And then the gas pump was one of those ones you stick the card in and it says lock in place. And then I put the code in, pump the gas, and I thought, here's the pump, Pete. You fill the truck. He's going to hang the pump up and take the card out. Just not even thinking about it. And we do the jumper cable escapade. We ride in. They dump us off. We check into the hotel. We get into the hotel. I'm sifting through my gear, emptying my sweaty, shitty jeans out.
And it is after midnight at this point?
It was 11, I think.
That's right.
10:30. And I can't find the Save the Brave credit card. And I knock on Pete's door, and he's already undressed and about ready to settle in. He's working, though. He's got his computer. I said, we can't find the card. Sure enough, I called the gas station, and I'd left it in the card reader. They pulled it out. So Pete says, I'll drive, and drives us an hour back. So now we're thinking, we're going to get to bed a decent hour tonight. And there's a video on SaveTheBrave.org with this whole story. But
I actually said the words, we're going to get to bed before midnight.
Yeah,
it would have been the first time.
Yeah, don't get detention in high school. So we drive back. I think we got to bed like 2 a.m. that night.
Well, because I still had work to do.
Yeah.
You saw, and during this week of all this stuff we've explained, I dropped the biggest project that I've ever done with the podcast. I mean, the biggest project of my life.
Prison Chronicles.
So that's out, and I've been trying to promote that. Like, all these things are going on this big, huge trip. And so it was like the brotherhood connection. Like, well, we both just got to go do this ride, and it was a 2-hour drive. We probably did it in 90 minutes because I was going fast, but still. But it's a very military thing. Like, well, this just has to get done. There's nothing to worry about. Like,
yeah, we even contemplated, should we do it in the morning? And the smart person in us said, no, we got to go at night.
Yeah, got to go at night.
It could be a shift change. They lose the card, and then we're fucked for the rest of the trip. So
now we can go to Atlanta. So, by the way, you talked to some people in Atlanta. It doesn't matter who they are, and they were struggling to find the effort to get something set up.
Yeah.
And I said, well, my buddy Jeff is in town. And by the way, there seems to be like a pattern between enlisted folks getting shit done and officers not being able to get shit done.
Fucking story.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
And so I'm like, well, I already know
As
Jeff.
a prior enlisted Marine, I will not disagree with that.
And I've known Jeff my time in Germany. And here's the guy Jeff is. We were going to play softball. He lives like an hour south. He didn't care. He'd get root canal and come up and play ball. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. He blew out his hip in the Army playing hockey, And so I said, your job in the 90s, your job is to play third base. I expect to have a Levi Garrett chaw in your mouth all the time. and just be a fucker that does not let the ball get by him. And he did all of it. You know, he's just a guy that will get it done. Also a firefighter, also a senior firefighter, you know. So he's like, I'll find a place for us. And he did. He found the place. It was fantastic. Because we tried a couple places. Yeah. It wasn't the first choice. It was the first one that got back and said, absolutely.
They welcomed us in. It was Ed and Tara at Cochrane Mills Brewing. And it was just south in Fairburn. Mm-hmm. So South Atlanta, Fairburn.
Kind of by the airport.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, man, what a welcome. And one of my good friends who is a Dutch Marine, Chuck Sullen, shows up, greets me. I mean, we hadn't seen each other in 14 years since we did some special forces
What a great
training.
guy, too. I love Chuck.
Yeah. I mean, and then we met National Geographic photographers and, you know, this local crew.
TJ, the drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ed, who's the owner, says, well, where are you staying? We're like, oh, well, we're planning to stay in, you know, like North Atlanta. He goes, no. You're staying with me. I got a B&B. So I says, hey, Pete, change of plans.
Yeah.
We're going to stay at this B&B. So tell everyone about, we party. And I give a speech on the deck to strangers, and, you know, they're all receptive. And then we raised a ton of money again. This is over $1,000 at Cochrane Brewing,
and there weren't that many people there. It was a small event.
But then we get this B&B thrown at us, and it's Ed and Tara's place. I'm like, oh, B&B. I'm like, oh, great, chocolate chip cookies and a shitty room.
Yeah, that was not the case. So we first off, Ed tears off into the dark, and we're like on a country road. And there's not a lot of lighting, so I'm trying to stay back so these guys can drive, but they're going really, really fast. And I'm thinking at some point Scott's going to need to get gas because we're in the middle of nowhere. And apparently Scott was thinking the same thing. And so all of a sudden Scott slows way down and Ed's just tears off into the dark, and he's gone. And I'm like, I bet he ran out of gas. And sure enough, I pull up and Scott had run out of gas. But the thing is, you know, Team STB, we got it. Whip out the old, you know, the gas can. And
Ed's gone.
Ed's gone. Like, disappeared.
But it was only about 1,000 meters from his driveway.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that close.
Yeah. But what it was, the reason why he was gone, just for the audience, these are dark, dark country roads. So he goes up a little rise. He makes a left. And we don't even know, but he's at his driveway. Like, it was, you know, if you had known better, you maybe could have put one big spurt in and then carried enough speed to get to the driveway. You wouldn't have got all the way in.
I didn't have it in me.
But we also didn't know you were going to run out of gas. So, but the thing was, you know, we had the extra gallon of gas, put it in, fired up the bike, and rode up. And actually, Ed came back. He's like, "Where'd you guys go?" Like, "Oh, Scott ran out of gas." But we get to this place, and I'm talking to my girlfriend on the phone. I'm like, "Oh, we just got to the B&B." And when I picture a B&B, I picture a cottage. I don't know why, but that's just what I picture, a tiny little place. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, this is a hotel. This is a hotel. This is not a B&B. This is like an actual hacienda. And I have no idea what this place is called. I'm like, but we're in a hacienda. Like, there's a circle driveway. Yeah, and it turns out it's called La Hacienda.
It's called La Hacienda.
Because it was. And it was this massive Mexican lodge
in Georgia.
Gorgeous, huge courtyard, like a picture of hacienda. And that's what they had, with these wonderful rooms and showers and hot tubs. Our first time
they fired the hot tub up for us. Like, you guys need to soak.
We did.
So me and Pete took a hot tub together. Not like that, but we did take a hot tub. Yes, it was lovely.
Gotta soak your bones.
It was nice.
Yeah, and just a wonderful. And again, like, I don't know what it cost to stay at that B&B, but if they were charging $500 a night, I'd be like, yeah, that's fair, because it's a wonderful place. It's the kind of venue that a bride and groom go to and go, this is where our small 500-person wedding is going to be. We can have it, you know.
And their kid got married there.
That's right. Yeah.
Their kids got married there. And then we wake up the next morning, they make huevos rancheros.
One of my favorites.
Blueberries with basil and, like, coffee. It's like, just...
Get the hell out of here.
They're just like, yeah. And they're not in your business. They're like, you need to put your things here. Yeah. Like, it was just like, yeah, man. So laid back. And her son shows up, and the baby and the dogs, and it's just,
Yeah.
Like you really felt at home at
Good
La
coffee.
Hacienda.
Yeah. It was great. Tara was such a great hostess.
Yeah.
And then as we're getting ready to leave, she's like, you guys absolutely have to stay on your way back. And you weren't staying in Atlanta, but I was going to stay the night at Jeff's house. And
Yeah.
I'm like, absolutely. Let me do this because I know that was important
You're
to
like,
them
Jeff's
too.
house is a trailer park. I'm staying at La Hacienda.
Jeff's house is fine. I was at Jeff's house. He's good. But I knew it was really important to those guys, to have
Yeah.
some, and no one's been staying there because of COVID. And I'm like, absolutely. I would love to. And it was great. It was wonderful to allow them to serve in their way and also to be served because, our bones are just tired at this point. But so we leave Atlanta and we drive up to,
You take off to your daughter's house.
well, first we went to Greenville, South
Yes.
Carolina.
Yeah. Yep.
And did not receive the warmest reception there.
Yeah, I went to a local brewery that didn't. I don't know. I don't want to disparage people, but just didn't have the same zest as any of the others. But it's hit or miss sometimes. Didn't work out. So Pete and I have a break contact plan. We're gonna part ways, and I'm trying to figure out what shit I put on the bike to go to Greenville.
And it's starting to rain.
Starting to rain. And who shows up but Chris Libby,
There you go.
the brother of the first Marine I lost in Ramadi, Dustin Libby,
Right.
who's killed on December 6, 2006. And he shows up and says, hey, I'll drive you up to Inman. And so I throw my backpack in his truck. They ride me into Inman, South Carolina. It's about a 30-minute drive from this brewery. And Pete takes off to his daughter's house. And so I roll in, little bit of rain, nothing big, but they were the thing too with Chris and his buddies were, they were a little apprehensive. They didn't want to impose on the whites and with everything that was going on with the memorial. But if there was one person I knew who was able to understand that loss of a son or someone close, it was Chris, because Chris and I have been in contact with each other for years after Dustin's death, and we go through some country roads and roll into Inman, and the whole white family is in the driveway with coolers in the driveway and the cars, and they're clapping, and I got my helmet cam on, and just all of that right there that culminated into the 2,500 miles we just put behind us, man.
Yeah.
And the reunion was great. It's always tough, but funerals and people dying brings people together. It forces them to come together, and that's a good thing that comes from what happens when people die, I guess. I don't know. There's no other way to put it, because people take things for granted. And, when someone dies, you're forcing like, oh, we should get together. And you're like, yeah, we all know it's not going to happen. But you really find out who your true friends and family are, and those that love you, like Chris showing up and riding me in. And then the whole memorial was the culminating point, and I have to thank the Patriot Guard riders in South Carolina that showed up for the memorial the next day. They roll in on their Harleys, and they stand there with the flags, and it's just very ceremonial, and they're very reverent about everything they do. They don't talk to anyone. They have a senior leader that, is responsible for representing the Patriot Guard riders, and they've been at so many memorials I've been to. I can't thank them enough. But I gave the eulogy, and then, we went and had food, and, the typical aftermath that goes on. But spent a couple nights with the whites, and it was just great. I think it meant a lot to the family, because not only on the ride out but the ride back ultimately culminated with thousands of people who had never known Dave White knew his name. we sat at the kitchen table and his mom pulled out Dave's wallet, and she's showing IDs from all the colleges he went to. He went to like every college, man. I can't remember like how many degrees he had from multiple colleges, and she pulls $32 out of his wallet, and she says, "I don't know what to do with this, but I want you to have it." She gives me the last $32 that Dave had, and we donated to Save the Brave. And I think there's a lot of people that would be really sentimental about something like that, but Cindy gave me the money, and she didn't think twice about it.
No.
She got it. She knew what I was doing. She knew me since I was a troublemaker in high school to the person I'd turned into today, and in addition, their whole family and everybody that showed up like donated a bunch of money too. They just got it. They're like, we understand Dave wasn't able to be saved, but try and save more. Fuck, man, who does that?
The honor of doing somebody's eulogy is big. And we drove across some big country, lots of inspirational things. I love I-8 and the Rocky Mountains, and not the actual, like the rocks on the mountains. The big sky of Texas and New Mexico and all these gorgeous things. When did you write his eulogy? And then give us the essence of what it was.
I wrote it the night before.
Okay.
As I rode, I thought about Dave in rainstorms in Texas and across the desert, and that word eulogy is this dry fucking speech about the life of someone, but I didn't want it to be that. I wanted to, and I didn't want to tell the stories about Dave drinking. Mm-hmm. I wanted it to be about how Dave connected people. I mean, everything that is so important about our tribe of veterans and friends of those who served. And I think that telling a little bit about that brought some positivity to the service. And it wasn't long. It was maybe a couple pages, but I didn't want to wing it either. I didn't want to get up there and just tell funny stories about Dave, and I wanted it to be meaningful to Cindy and his brother Andy and the whole family. And I had some thoughts, and I had written them down, and then that night, I was up till about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I typed it out, and I brought my computer up on the podium with me because I said I don't want to miss a word, and I didn't have time to memorize it.
Yeah.
So I read from it, and I think it was perfect. I think that for me, that's what I wanted to say to Dave the last time.
When you have the opportunity to write a eulogy or fill in the pamphlet for the order, you're summarizing someone's life into 100 words, sometimes less, sometimes a little more. What's the bottom line up front with Dave? Like, what's the 15 to 20 words?
I think that Dave had a spirit that connected everybody, and his infectious personality and laughter was something that won't be forgotten, and that he touched a lot of people and brought them together in the end. I think is whether you're achieve success or fame or failure or whatever it is in life that defines people, is at the end of that life, those people, when they come together, they take time to understand who that person was, and to try and articulate that in a couple thousand words in a eulogy is tough.
Yeah.
And I've given a lot of those over the years for Marines that have fallen in combat, but I've never given one for someone that was a good friend of mine, someone that I intimately knew. In the most raw sense of the word with Dave. And to share that with his family about how I felt about him, and that I think everybody felt about him, that would bring them together and understand that, like, hey man, it's a really big loss, but at the end of the day too, Dave made all of our lives better, and there's so many positive things that we remember about him that we shouldn't focus on the bad, and I think that's the best part of it. So, but Mom giving me the money was tough. I got up the next morning, and it was hard to leave, but it was also the apex of this trip for us. And I mean, we're only halfway through the trip and we're an hour into this show. But, I mean, we're not going to do two parts, but I think it's important to know that the trip had a different feel once I left.
For sure.
South Carolina, because I was driving to something. I was driving to this memorial where friends and family would be, and there was also one point along that journey where I realized Dave's not going to be there when I get there.
Yeah.
He's gone. And that was tough. But we got through it, and we pushed, said our goodbyes. Everybody was happy. And the next stop was Birmingham.
Let me fill in some gaps of mine to that too, because my daughter, so when we talk about thank you for your service, wives, daughters, sons, parents, they all serve too. And my daughter and I don't have this long-term proximity relationship, a few years here and there. But for most of our lives, we've been apart. And because of COVID and because she's a college kid, doesn't have that much money, we weren't able to get together for almost 18 months, which for us is a really long time. And so we were able to get together.
I haven't seen her since she was here in the studio.
Yeah, right. It's been a long time.
Long time. It's like 3 years.
Right. So, and she was supposed to travel. I don't know if I told you this, but she was supposed to travel out for her annual trip. Like, she tries to come out twice a year. And it was that week. Like, the days I saw her were the days blocked out on my schedule for her to fly out, but she had to cancel her flight because of COVID, And so it was, serendipitous that we actually got to spend, and it wasn't much time, not nearly enough time, never is, but we got to spend time together. I also got to go see Chef Otto, who's a veteran chef, wonderful dude. He's been a guest on the show, and just a wonderful soul. So Chef Otto, I want to acknowledge him. And then most importantly, a guy that I know, he's our age. We worked together at Tower, and from our generation, there was no cooler job than working at Tower. And he learned so much of life and his business. And he is one of the most successful black directors in all of the industry. I mean, Jamie Foxx's number's in his phone. You can call him right now and be like, hey, Jamie. And so we worked at this tiny little, Sacramento store together years and years and years and years ago in the late 80s. And we finally got to connect. And one of the reasons why we didn't get to connect earlier is he lost a son recently. And it just devastated him. And I said, how is it? How are you recovering? And not a question I would lead with, but this is someone I used to know a long time ago. And I know him well enough to ask him. And he's like, you don't get over it. It hurts every day. And it just kind of went into the theme of this whole thing. By the way, during this trip, at this point, I got to notice that Dr. Andy Friedman, who had died from leukemia.
Tragic.
Yeah, like the day we left, my buddy Nick Velez died, and he's, a little over, he's like 54 years old, but his body gave out. And then I got a notice out of, no one directly to me, but directly to a friend, another veteran had killed himself on this trip.
I mean, no one likes to talk about death, and I don't know, like, people listen, like, I don't want to listen to a podcast about death, but, this is part of humanity.
It's part of life.
And I think that we were surrounded by this, and throughout the trip, on different fronts, different people we knew, some people we didn't know. I think is a moral of this story is don't take shit for granted.
Right.
Just don't.
Yeah.
Because that person who you thought was going to be on the podcast next week, you just don't know.
We never got that next podcast.
Never got it. And
Yeah.
I loved Andy.
Yeah. There was so many more conversations.
I mean, I met him once.
Yeah.
But enthralled with his genius. Just, yeah. So.
And I never got that next time out in Chicago with Nick. You know, it's
We
never
never got
right.
John Barletta.
Right? Never got John Barletta.
Never got John Barletta.
Never got Dick Dale. It just happens.
I know.
You know, so what I'm saying is here's this trip where we could have easily said, no thanks, COVID. You know, you just go take care of that. But we defaulted to action because we're action guys. And you look at all of these things that happen, and here is life. Just like these pillars fall no matter what. Like, and if pillars are lives, they're going to keep falling. So get out and interact with folks. So, hey, that's just the thing that I wanted to point out. You know, my buddy Brian, who I've not seen in 30 years. And we're just, boom. And Brian's a black dude who's lived in the South for 25 years. He grew up in East Palo Alto at the same time as Hilliard. And if they didn't know each other, at least not to Brian's recollection, but they're the same people. So here in this time of racial conflict and everything else, Brian and I are talking, and we're the same person because we both grew up in the Bay. We both worked at the same store in Sacramento. We both have the same love of music. He borrowed my records. I borrowed his. And even though we've had these completely divergent paths the last 30 years, we're talking about everything, and vibing the whole time. You know, It wasn't. We have the overall social conversation. I think is important here, and that if you allow someone to be the best person they can be, then they have an opportunity to do the same thing for you.
Yeah,
and you can be something better than what someone wants to assign you. You know. But with all that said, let's get back on the road because this is a long podcast. So we hook up in Atlanta, and then put the spurs in it and get to.
We link up
Birmingham
at some fucking truck stop and then blast through to Birmingham. We go to Celerius Brewing. Colonel Danny Sample hosts us. One of my Marines, Scott Williford from my Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team company, comes down, sets us up, and knocks it out of the park. The American Legion shows up at Celerius. You got grilled cheese food truck outside. Our cholesterol went through the fucking
Jesus
roof.
Christ.
But another shining example, like how people they don't have a lot of money. Businesses are suffering, incomes are suffering, still donating to SaveTheBrave.org, and then the guy that fills the air up for the brewery tanks is going to match whatever beer sales for the Warrior Brew that Danny sold that night. And it's that Southern hospitality, man. Like, they just were happy we were there. And COVID be damned. I mean, there were probably 50, 100 people in and out that night. And we roll out, and I think where do we stay in Shreveport that night?
Air Force put us up.
That was Louisiana.
You said Shreveport.
No,
in Birmingham, where did we stay?
Alabaster, yeah.
We stayed at the Candlewood Suites, and they were wonderful also.
Yeah, Celerius Springs in Alabaster, just south Birmingham. Stay in Candlewood Suites, and then bust out the next morning and head to Shreveport. We go to Barksdale Air Force Base. No events in Shreveport, and then we bust out and then head into Texas, man. Like, we're back on the road into Texas. God, I love Texas, man. They are just, I got so many followers and so many supporters down there.
I don't want to get out of Shreveport too quick because you said, I want to have a steak. And so we had steaks
the
at the casino. Yeah. And it was the first time when we'd really pulled up a little bit and like took a real pause,
Yeah, and we got some laundry done. Well, some of us got laundry done. Pete rolls in. So Pete is, and I check in with, I call and make the reservation. I'm like, yeah, my name's Major Scott Huesing, da-da-da. they go, okay, great, here's your rooms, and it's the visiting officer quarters, and they're these old barracks that are kind of refinished, but they're nice. And one of the rooms is like a super suite, and I'm like, oh, this is Pete's room. And then my room was on the first floor, which was nice, but Pete's was the Colonel Doolittle room, and it was this
General, don't downgrade me.
yeah,
General
sorry,
Doolittle.
General Doolittle room. And but my room was on the first floor, closer to the laundry. But before we rack out, Pete comes by and he just throws his bag of laundry. He goes, "Here's my laundry. I just want to set it here." And I didn't pick up on the cue. Like he wanted me to.
No. You said you asked where the laundry was, and the lady's like, "It's right by your room." And so you said, "Hey, it's when we were setting all your stuff up, and I'm carrying your bags into your room." You say, "Hey, I'm going to do laundry. Do you have any?" And I say, "No, I don't." And I thought, "Oh, you know what? I have a bag of laundry. I'll leave it in your room." And so I look at you and said, "Here's my laundry," and I put it on the box. And that's when you fucked you with me.
I totally Blue Falcon, and Blue Falcon means Blue Falcon, like buddy fucker. And so I did my laundry thinking like, oh, this is just Pete's dirty laundry. Like he's not wearing this anymore. So I didn't do his laundry, even though I was up till whatever hour doing laundry. And yeah, I fucked you on that.
But the big points were we got waited on by a guy that had a voice like Michael Duncan Smith.
Clark, Michael Duncan, Clark, Michael.
And he was great. And we had steak dinners. And it was wonderful to slow down. And at that casino, by the way, like the restaurant we planned to go to, was closed. Like COVID is still impacting the entire thing. But we were fortunate to get a wonderful meal.
Yeah, we were lucky just to sit down and yeah, it was good.
Because we ate more Walmart wraps than we ate sit-down meals.
We did. We didn't. Yeah, we like this. The whole trip, we were eating out of the back of Pete's pickup truck, and not a lot of sit-down meals.
Right.
Like 2 or 3, maybe. It wasn't until we pushed out of Shreveport and we rolled into. We just crossed over to Texas to Scottsville, which we were trying to get a photo out by the sign because it's Scottsville, right? Because it's cool. And then we picked up Eric Hicks again.
Yeah.
Who built a rifle for us that has Save the Brave logo on it. It's a 5.56 rifle.
That will be auctioned or raffled off.
Yeah, we're raffling it off. And he rides in with me to Dallas proper, Arlington. And we roll in, get to the hotel Live by Lowe's in Arlington, check in, and then we have the huge party, pre-game party with Tim Clun, TK, Verve United, which I'm a brand ambassador for. Love their product, CBD. Go to Verve United, check those guys out. They are super. And Eric and I roll in, and then the next night everyone goes to the party. And we get up on the microphone and we're trying to auction this rifle. Everyone's drunk off their ass. So no one's listening to me. Like the first time in a long time, I get on the microphone and this is not happening.
Yeah.
This is the wrong venue.
The party is too good.
Party's too good.
Yeah.
Moot point. DJ, you got it.
Yeah.
Boom. So we just rocked on at Live by Lowe's, and I think we spent I was there 4 nights. You busted down to Houston.
Yep.
Rolled in on the second night, and then we had a great time though connecting. I had more 2-4 Marines show up at the hotel. Yep. A little mini reunion, and then the day we roll out on the 27th, right?
Yep.
My boys from 22 Kill show up. Jake Schick, 22 Kill, and Ashley Camereth, and a bunch of riders, Eric and Robin Hicks. And the best part about we got to talk about Eric and Robin. I don't care how long this podcast goes because Eric and Robin, I love those guys. Eric rides her bike over to the hotel. She drives the pickup truck so she can ride the bike with me as her guardian for her first highway ride ever.
Yes.
To Studio 22 at Mercury Studios with Chad Prather. So we all do our videos and photo ops, and we roll over to Studio 22, 20 25 bikes and
Yeah.
the trucks and
by the way, this is put out. Our planning got a little more loosey-goosey on the backside. So we put a flyer out, but,
like 2 days before, maybe.
Yeah. But it wasn't as, like, dedicated as we had done on this particular one because we had a lot going on. And so, like, and Lalo and Nick had come out for the party.
Yep.
And so when we did the ride over, we still had people show up, like, out of the blue. Like,
Holy shit. Yeah, they drove down from California 19 hours straight in the pickup truck to bring us more T-shirts and swag.
Yeah, exactly. And I also got to make sure, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. When I went down to Houston, I hung out with my buddy Kirk Gomez, who's in my private friends-only text group from my high school that no one ever gets. But he's like that kind of friend.
That's your hometown.
Yeah, hometown. And my buddy Brian Holson, who's also hometown, 2 grades older than us, and we just had the best time. We sat down for hours, and it was like we sat down for 10 minutes. It was so great, and we had such a great visit. And then I came back up and met you guys. But yeah, so that party that rode you over to Studio 22 was full of just random people. We had just a bunch of different riders come in, hook up with us, and then head over to Chad's studio where Chad does what Chad does best.
But Jake Schick with 22 Kill, I mean, that he and I have met several times, but it wasn't until we're hanging out ready to roll in the Texas Rangers parking lot that we'd had our first conversation that was meaningful for maybe 20, 30 minutes. And his girlfriend Ashley, we'd hung out at a SHOT Show with Natalie Woods and a couple others, but me and Jake just like we just never had time to connect. But in the parking lot there, it was just we found this symbiotic relationship where it meant a lot to us to understand how laser focused we are on stemming veteran suicide, and that's why that's why we're doing this ride. That's why we're putting the miles in every day. That's why we're, eating out of Walmart parking lots is to tell people like, as bad as it gets, it's worse for others.
Yeah, for sure.
And we push out and we go to Chad's studio. They give us a tour. We hop on the Chad Prather show. Rick Irving shows up, takes amazing pictures. Rick Irving Photography on Facebook.
Had his grandson Sterling there.
The best grandson in the world. And we laid the pod down. We had Robin and Eric in studio. We had you, Nick, Party Foul, Steve, Natalie was Strainer, and me and Chad were just talking about the ride.
And I'll put the link for that show in the show notes. One quick note on all that stuff, too. I was talking, as we went along, I'm talking to all the people that I know when we're working on things. And one of the people that we know that lives in Alabama is Mad Dog Maggart. And you guys saw him. He made national news changing Colin Powell's tire at one point. The reason why I bring him up is Mad Dog is an amputee, military amputee. And I relayed to you, like, I had no idea that the veteran suicide thing for veterans who are amputees is exponentially more than the 22
which was brought up in the parking lot with Jake Schick.
Exactly.
And he confirmed that.
Yeah, so we're already working on doing a show on that because that does not have any attention. And when you understand why, this isn't people giving up because of pain or depression. It's a whole different thing. And so we're going to get into that in another episode. But it's jaw-dropping,
Well, we just have to raise awareness.
And we didn't know this. Like, this is new to us. That's why I'm like, if it's new to us, we need to make sure other folks know because it's just
you don't know what you don't know.
We don't know what you don't know.
And anyone listening to this show, despite the trials and tribulations of the road and the connecting the dots, at the end of the day, man, this episode is about SaveTheBrave.org, raising awareness for veteran suicide, post-traumatic stress, and the struggles that this tribe of warriors are dealing with.
Right.
And how does the public embrace those guys, reach out to them at a gas station or at a supermarket or at an event or at a movie theater and say, hey, man, are you okay?
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do for you? I'm an insurance salesman.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do.
Can I make you huevos rancheros?
Can I put you up my B&B?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, can I do something for you that'll help make your life easier?
Yeah.
Because I can see you've got some obstacles.
Right.
And that's the message, man.
Yeah, that's the
I mean,
message.
I think as we've known each other, Pete, that message from both of us has gotten more and more succinct.
Yeah.
That enough of the fucking hyperbole and, just dancing around the issues. Like, these are things we need to talk about. And I think we really drilled down on that on Chad's show.
Yeah.
So that was a good show. But we had the rifle there. We talked about that. And we had to motor 430 miles back to Pecos. Hit Pecos. Crashed out. I overslept. We got late. And then we had 540 miles to Tucson.
Yeah.
Then but we got...
It's like a country song.
I know, man.
540 miles.
It was great, man. And hey, Sturgill Simpson, if you're listening,
Yeah.
let's listen to you, man. Sturgill Simpson. So good. Let's get Sturgill Simpson on this show.
Let's do it.
He'll get on.
540 miles to Tucson's a song. We're going to write it, and we're going to get someone to do
540
the
to
music.
Tucson.
Yeah.
Fuck 410 to Yuma.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That's a long, hot, fucking lonely ride. El Paso's a long-winded bitch. But we got picked up by riders in San Simon.
That's right. Which is the eastern edge of I-10 in Arizona.
We got picked up in Benson, handed off in Benson to some other vets. We did a great video. Pete shot. That thing's got like 10,000 views right now.
It's powerful. It's been shared a lot.
It's been shared a lot because the message is clear.
Yeah.
To our vets. We love you, man. If you're thinking about killing yourself, don't fucking kill yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there that love you. And that ride was physical. And we had a bunch of Vietnam vets out there on raked out choppers. And, these guys are 70, 75 of a day.
They're leading the way, man. We're going to have to live up to that.
Motherfuckers,
They
dude.
do, yeah.
I gassed out, man. I'm busting 85 miles an hour on my Harley, leading the way, and I'm thinking, I'm going to dust these guys. No, they can ride.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking. Looking in my rearview mirror every time when you feel alone and you see these guys riding behind you, you're like, this is support.
Yeah.
This is the love. And these
I want to
old
ask
guys,
you about this, too.
They ride.
I want to ask you about this because you've got a lot of time on the road. Sometimes you don't have music because, you're just like unplugged and just riding. And at times, it's physically uncomfortable. We'd stop under an underpass to cool off as much as you can cool off in the shade on a 100+ day. But talk a little bit about the toll of riding like that, like when you're mentally out there and you're getting tired.
I think the support you receive along the way and knowing that I'm constantly surrounded by people that understand what we're doing and the outpour of support and knowing that other people have had it harder than me, even at age 50, man, like I'm pushing through. And I'm in good shape. I can handle it. So that wasn't an issue. But I think about guys like John Hancock who walked, 5,609 miles on his feet. So, I'm riding Harley.
Right.
Yeah. It's tough, but at least I can pull over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those were driving factors for me and inspiring factors for me that kept me on the gas and just driving to make sure that I met all of those milestones that we had to meet because we were on a timeline. Like people were expecting us in every city.
Yeah.
Like we show up and like, oh, it's 6:00. Here comes Pete and Scott.
Exactly. Down the road. The other thing too, of all the states, Alabama, mile for mile covered you as much as anybody. And Arizona on the way back, those southern Arizona riders had you from San Simon to Gila Bend and then Yuma to the border, which isn't a lot. But it's also Yuma. It's hot as hell outside.
It's Arizona, man. It was hot as fuck.
So,
It felt like 2 irons pressed on my knees as I was riding. It was so hot. Like the sun was
Scorching
baking down on the black leather chaps on my jeans. And to cool my knees off, I would take my left hand off of my handlebars and put them on my knee.
Yeah.
to cool them off.
Scott's favorite move when he would stop was to jam his hands into the ice buckets, that we had the water in, because his hands are just taking a whooping, that whole time.
Just gripping.
Yeah.
Your hands get, tightened up, and
Yeah.
it's age, and just your joints. But yeah, it was a little Motrin. I mean, we pushed through Arizona.
Well, let's cover the brewery first, too, so I want to make sure we get those guys.
We roll into Tucson again. Lizette Ekman, thank you, you gorgeous thing.
Yeah.
On her red Spider bike. We go to 1912 Brewery, owned by a Marine. They host us. They're like, COVID be damned. And as we're there's a food truck. They're feeding us tacos, and then these two cops roll in. And I'm like, fuck, man. Like COVID police. Or like, no.
Nope.
The Marines. Of course. Of course they're Marines. And they want to meet me, and like we do introductions, and my Gold Star mom, Sue Pollard, was there. Blue Star mom, Pam Rogan, was there. And a mini reunion. Adam Fry, Jonathan, Ben Israel was there, and Gregorio Cienfuegos, all Echo Company Marines showed up. Totally surprised me.
Yeah.
So I've got this, and then the news crew shows
Yep.
in Tucson. Totally butchered my name in the interview, but
Which was hilarious after your whole Chad Prather thing that you did.
Oh my God, yeah. So Scott Wessing got some media coverage in Tucson.
Scott Wessing. Yeah.
And Ben Bueller Garcia.
Ben Bueller crushed
that guy.
Yeah.
Dude, Ben, I love you,
crushed
man.
it. He crushed it. Yeah, Arizona was awesome. They were fantastic.
American Warrior Radio.
Yes, American
Ben
Warrior
Bueller.
Radio. Yeah, Ben
Tune in.
Bueller. Ben Bueller Garcia. He's been a guest on he will be a guest on the show. I've been a guest on his show. We'll get him, I don't know, like probably in 2 weeks. The other thing I wanted to say about Arizona also is it's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know
we haven't even talked about that, like the
so
landscape
beautiful.
and
Yeah.
the clouds in New Mexico and the flats of Arizona and the mountains and the mesas, and God dang, man, just the scenery is tough. I remember we pulled over one time. You go, "Hey, are you taking time to like take all this in, or you just like head down in the bucket, like looking at the road, trying not to, wipe out at 90 miles an hour?" And I was like, I'm taking it in, man. Like I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm loving this.
If you are having trouble with what America is right now, go experience her. I mean, straight
Go
up.
see America.
Go see America. We rode all over the place under the Confederate flags. I saw 5 representations, and they were never prominent. It was like someone's patch or, like someone's cup or something, but it was never like a statement.
Yeah.
We didn't see any of that stuff. We saw wonderful, beautiful people, all, again, every type of person you can
Giving
have.
of their time,
Yeah.
their money in the 100-degree heat.
Yeah.
It was just nuts, man.
Coming out in the face of a pandemic, all kinds of people engaged in doing things. Arizona was always a highlight. I was impressed by how many people came out. And when you think about where they met us, and San Simon's in the middle of nowhere, you know?
To draw a crowd in San Simon.
Right. Yeah.
We had 30 riders out there with us, minimum. And they pushed us into Benson, and then we blasted to Yuma.
Yeah.
And we were hammering down, man, just to get through the heat. And then we got to Yuma. We called Woody again. Woody does have the media blitz.
He does.
From Yuma. We do an interview at Love's Truck Stop. And the guy hops on the interstate and films us, crossing the state line. We get back into California. Mark Sperling, who rode me out of town. Mark's a magnificent bastard. He's also the family readiness officer for our battalion right now. He hops on and rides us into town at Temecula, Duke's Mesquite Bar and Grill.
Right.
For the wrap-up.
And there we met with Brad Hutchings, a friend of mine. Someone's always listening to the show. He came down from Rancho Santa Margarita, which, hour. Easy,
Dave West
if not two.
shows
Dave
up.
West, Bifong friend.
My family shows up. Nick is there. Lalo's there. All the Save the Brave.
The
team is there.
Giulianis show up.
Joe and Heather Giuliani of PLB Coffee are there. Jimmy Fitzpatrick of Fitz Army's there. Duke's staff is just knocks it out of the park, because let me say this too. We asked another establishment in Temecula to host us, and they're like, well, you'll have to sit at your assigned seating.
Yeah.
And we're like, not doing that.
Yeah.
A local motorcycle shop didn't want to get involved.
Right.
Which, again, you get disappointed. Like, this is my hometown.
Yeah.
So now I know where the love is.
Yeah. Not in California, unfortunately.
Well, some places.
Yeah, we got a lot of love at Duke's. Duke's was great, and we had a great crowd there and everything else. But KTLA was invited to come out and represent the show, and and do something to talk about this incredible
NBC7
story.
was invited back out, like, get the final exclusive.
Yep, but
No show.
Didn't get
But
it.
throughout the whole trip that we've just talked about for an hour and a half plus, I don't even know what the meter is, but local coverage in every city from Tucson, Odessa, you name it. Like, I think I did 8-10 interviews.
Yeah.
And then I get back to California, man, it just speaks to the climate of what the fuck is important.
Yeah.
Politics and COVID, or a 90-second blurb about veterans helping their own community, which we care about. I mean, we don't care about nothing but veterans, but this is special to us because we are veterans, and you and I care about other things outside of that. But this thing in particular was a great news piece.
Yeah.
That they really.
And so this is why I brought this part up, because I want to go back to Tucson, because again, we lose somebody, and it's
Oh shit, man! Brian Lloyd,
right.
who hosted us on the way out, we find out that his next door neighbor, who's a 19-year-old Army soldier, committed suicide. I mean, it's just tragic, serendipitous. I don't know, and just brings
That's
it all together.
It's a representation of what this looks like.
Just when
know?
you think it's just a statistic.
Right.
It's not. It's people you know. It's your next door neighbor. It's a guy you served with. It's your friend. It's your high school buddy. It's these are people, man. These deaths that are preventable.
Right.
By the way, preventable.
Right.
If people just ask certain questions.
Yeah.
If we close on nothing else, I close with this: is that I have asked Pete, "How are you doing?" Do you ever think about killing yourself?
Me? Every day. Every damn day I do.
But I've asked that.
Yeah.
It's rhetorical
Yeah.
in a sense, but
Yeah.
I know enough to ask the question. So if there's someone around you that you think might be struggling, you got to ask that hard question. You can't be a pussy about it and say,
Right.
oh, it's great, you're doing good. How's your job? No. Hey, man, are you thinking about killing yourself? I know you're drinking a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I care about you.
Yeah.
I care about you, man. Don't ever think I don't care about you. That's important, man.
When I say this, and I always have to preface it, I've got the tools now. Not that my fight is over. My fight continues every day. But I was telling you, when we were in Alabama, you were doing your news story, and I took my index and middle finger and stuck them under my chin like it was a pistol. And I was thinking about it, And it's part of my process of dealing with it. And I bring this up not to be shocking, but to talk to the next person who doesn't have the tools. I'm struggling that much. I'm not going to do it. I'm in a good space. But that's the fight. And I talked to my therapist 3 times during that trip. Because I am trying to deal with this. There were these extra deaths. There were these extra struggles. But I've got these tools. And so if you don't have those things, get them, please. You can be look, I'm still screwed up. I'm fighting it, but I have the abilities where I'm like, I'm not going to do it. There's no way. But I want to every day. I feel it every day, right? So check in with your people. Make sure, insist. Like if you want to help them, if you feel bad, Go get help. Take them to it. Don't fail them. You know, when they don't show up, you say, that's all right. We'll make another schedule. We'll go do it again. But this is important because being on your rope is, you know, the rope ends.
Yeah.
You don't want to save them at the ropes end. You want to get them way before that.
Yeah, and the guy we met in Dallas, too, John Salerno, you know, on the back of his business card, it says, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's original, but it doesn't matter.
But yeah, and that's one of the reasons why, and I learned this from Rudy, when you share this, like how hard and how deep and how much you struggle, you know, there's courage in that. And I don't say it to draw attention to myself. I say it because it really is that hard for people. And it's not just pain. It's not just what I can't understand it. My therapist says it's in part a habit for me from years and years of whatever, combat and abuse, whatever it's going to be. But you get to the point where you just default to that. Just default to the end. And I'm desperately trying to figure out. I'm willing to take mushrooms to try to figure this out. So I stop feeling it. So if you're in that zone, you can get help. You can get tools. You can deal with it. It's not easy, but it's worth doing because I'm having a great life, you know?
Yeah. Well, the whole trip, man, you know, all the people we met along the way were, you can't thank them enough, but there's also a lot of people that shared our story on social media.
Yeah.
That
So many
guys
people.
like Brian Shantosh, Crooked Butterfly,
Right.
who volunteered to pay for our gas. And he hates it that I would even mention this because he's so humble. Rudy Reyes, Nate Boyer, and I mean, all, you know, Flying Mach 7 and Combat Learjet and all of these other people.
Red 6 shared
Red
stuff.
6 CEO
Right.
on Instagram. They just push the story and supported the ride for the brave. And, you know, you can poo-poo social media all you want, but man, it is powerful. It is here to stay for the time being, unless COVID infects the internet. But I know it's really cool when you see those people on social media think, oh, my platform's this or my platform's that, and they care, you know, because they've all got their brand or they want to say this. But when they start sharing that stuff and they understand those people like Rudy and Nate and Tosh and Mark Pattison, like all these guys, man, they get it, man. They totally get it. And I love those guys. And I just want to give them, you know, there's probably dozens of people that I've forgotten to thank in this episode, but it's been important to me to share the entire journey, share your contribution to it.
Yeah.
I mean, because this was absolutely a team effort.
The whole Save the Brave team.
It is.
I texted hundreds of pictures and videos back to Nick. Those guys planned things. They built
Fallon Baker.
so many things. Yeah.
Fallon, like, she can only do so much, man, but she's our, you know, runs our marketing and you know, she does like 10 other jobs. So.
Yeah. So many phone calls. I was following up on the phone calls that were the phone calls just to make sure that the phone calls we made tightened up our timelines.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, hundreds of hours worth of work into this thing. It's crazy when you think about
It
it.
started off with me, a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. I'm like, fuck it, I'm riding.
And then the help came. And we turned it into something else. We turned it into, so far, I mean, it's going to grow, but $25,000 if you don't include the free nights at Hacienda and the meals that were bought for us. I mean,
We didn't even, I did my trip report today, you know, the admin stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we raised over $20,000 for Save the Brave. Helps veterans with post-traumatic stress and raise awareness for veteran suicide and our Gold Star families. But we didn't even count in all the free stuff that was thrown in there.
Right.
Like, hey, you know, 3-night stay at La Hacienda for
Right.
$500 a night. Like that.
Yeah.
That cuts into our profit margin, which we can directly use for veteran programs.
yeah.
But that's a donation, those goods and services.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you're listening, like, and you've got something to offer, hit us up at the Break It Down show. on Instagram, or Save the Brave org on Instagram, or Echo and Ramadi on Instagram, and say, hey, man, I listened to the show, and it was long, and there's a lot of miles covered. But you know what? I got news for you. I covered a lot of fucking miles.
Yeah.
And we met a lot of great people.
Yes.
And they gave. And
if we missed out on your contribution, I'm so sorry. We're trying to get everybody.
If you didn't get that message, man, it's not the right audience. But
I mean, it's a long episode, but I don't care about that because it's a chronicle of what we've done.
If David Lee Roth can do 3 hours on Rogan, me and you that gave 16 days of our life to SaveTheBrave.org. It's not even worth discussing. I mean, it really isn't. Because this is the important stuff, people. Yeah. This is the important stuff.
Post Malone and Joe Rogan just did 4 hours the other day on the show.
Yeah.
So, and I love, both those guys are great, but they didn't ride across the nation and raise $20,000, by themselves. Like, we went out on that road. Yeah, and my truck said 6,000 miles.
And neither of them served their country in combat zones or wrote best-selling books.
Right.
And, so it's not, a dick measuring contest. No. It's just, it's reality, man.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying it's like, at the end of the day, you also have to be realistic and say, this is what's important to me. And, if media and selling records or movies or TV shows is more important than defending this nation, I'm going to go with the nation. That's just me. Yeah.
The other thing that's come out of this is, and along the entire way, everybody has said, come back next year, do it again.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's almost out of our hands. I don't know that we're going to do it again in terms of the whole thing, but would you catch us in Dallas? Probably. Would you catch us in Atlanta? Probably.
Yeah. I think there's I think that there's so many great moments, so many great ideas that came out of this trip that people want to sustain it, that for SaveTheBrave.org, it's going to be something that we definitely want to rally around because, I mean, there's no other way to put it, Pete.
Yeah.
The nation rallied around this.
Exactly right.
Our country rallied around this. I mean, it was from a plumber in his truck giving us $20 at a gas station to Chad Prather, who reaches 30 million people every day. And, it's great, man. It's an amazing thing that we did. And we're both here, our ranch in Temecula, and I think the reality kind of sunk in a little bit today. And doing this episode, Pete said to me, he goes, "Hey, we're gonna do a wrap up show." I said, "We gotta do it now.
Yeah,
we gotta do it now while we're still in love with this ride." And it's been an emotional, heartwarming, hot ass pounding journey.
Yeah.
But so worth it, man. And dude, I just want to thank you for the support. And to Jerry.
Thank you. Yeah.
Jerry, you get it, man. You know what Pete does, and we've known each other for years now, and to let him hang with me, I know it's great. I know it's crazy. It seems crazy, but Jerry, you're the best, man. And
it's a fair point that what we do and did in a lot of ways for a lot of people is stupid. We drove through the heart of the outbreak,
Yeah.
But
how many comments on social media? Where's your masks? I got your mask.
Yeah. And it wasn't that we were reckless with this, but also
we sanitized our hands, and we're we weren't sneezing on each other.
Nope.
I mean,
but we also know what I hate to say true danger. We also know what true danger is. To have your life in someone else's hand, and they're measuring. And so these things for us are different. Like, we're pros.
They're acceptable
at danger.
risks. As a commander, you mitigate risk.
Right.
And you have to understand is like, hey, listen, man, if this ride 5,150 miles saved one fucking life.
Yeah.
And 3 people got COVID who were asymptomatic. Absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely worth it. You have to weigh the risk versus gain.
Yeah.
And in this case, this ride, it was absolutely an acceptable risk as a commander. And my staff briefed me on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we looked out for each other like, how guys who go to combat zones do, and we know what risk is like, and we're pros at this kind of thing. Not that we're not invincible, but, it's an acceptable risk. We know how to manage it, and we accept the consequences. So. Man, I love it. I love you. I love that we did this. It's fantastic. If you've listened to this whole thing, God bless. Thanks. And donate to Save the Brave.
And sure. Number 5.